Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. I'm here with Brett Trainor. Brett leads our continuing education technology business. Hey Brett.
Hey Dario.
How you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you, man?
Awesome. So why don't you tell the audience, Brett, a little bit about what we're going to walk them through over the next 20 minutes or so.
Yeah, sure thing. This was something that a number of our clients kind of de facto recommended. We were getting a lot of questions about, hey, what are other companies like us doing? We get that question a lot, but we realized there was really no good benchmark within the continuing education space for how folks were delivering training, what they were spending on marketing, things of that nature. You could use other adjacent industries, but no one had actually gone out and done this. So we surveyed just under 100 companies, and that's the number of responses we got. And I think we got some really good, really meaty benchmarking data that folks can use. And I think we're planning on doing this survey on a regular basis now, because I think we've realized that the value is quite high.
Yeah, and I think especially as people go into planning and budgeting for next year, I think a lot of the benchmarks in here, especially around some of the financial things that we'll go through, are going to be really valuable. So yeah, so Brett and I are going to walk you through the survey. Some questions, we'll spend a little bit more time on and unpack. Others will be a little bit more self-explanatory. And you can get the survey from our website, www.sciolytix.com, or you can contact Brett or I, and we'll be more than happy to send you a copy. Okay, Brett, so let's dive in here.
Yep.
Okay, so the first question we asked was, what best describes your feelings kind of over the past 18 months? I mean, obviously, some really strange times here, but Brett, you want to talk a little bit about this one?
I think that this question, the response to this question is almost exactly in line with what you'd expect. 40% of people found it exhilarating, 40% found it stressful, 20% found it other. No one found it depressing, which I think is really good to know. I think one of the senses that I saw when I read through the survey, and we've done it many times, is I think people saw the threat to their business, but at the same time saw the new opportunities as learning moved online.
Yep.
And the folks who are a step ahead of the game, I think, really are feeling good about what's lying ahead.
Absolutely. So so we also asked them kind of up front, and we're going to drill into a number of different areas here, but pick your overall business challenges.
Yeah.
And Brett, obviously number one, winning new customers, right? That's always
I think that's true for 99 every industry, every business. Yeah,
creating and updating courses, number two.
Yep.
Again, just a lot of hard work that goes into that. And then number three, enhancing learner engagement and satisfaction. So and those were the big three by quite a wide margin.
I think the next one is interesting as well. Transitioning from live to remote delivery. I think that for a lot of companies, they already had remote delivery as a part of their arsenal. Even if they were doing blended learning, the fact that for 26%, this was not a top three biggest challenges last year is a sign that people were a step ahead of the massive disruption, a good chunk of the marketplace at least.
Yeah, absolutely. So next question here, this is interesting. What's your outlook for the business for the next 12 months? So this is looking forward here. So it looks like people are pretty optimistic.
Yeah, almost 80% of people are optimistic or very optimistic for the next 12 months. And I think, again, that reflects this perception that things are changing and there's more opportunities coming available to training, CE training companies that are out there.
Absolutely. Okay. So, again, some of the reasons for your outlook, people can read them here, but I think to your point, Brett, you can be glass half empty or glass half full. And, if you're in this business, certification licensing isn't going away. That's for sure.
Right.
If anything, it's becoming, more prominent. And I think some of the ways that are, you're able to deliver now. I mean, in fact, I think what we've seen and what we saw in the survey was that there are some, licensing bodies that previously, only allowed a small percentage of CE to be done virtually, right? They wanted it to be done live. And now that pendulum is kind of, those constraints are off now.
Yeah, I absolutely. When you think about the way businesses responded, where now you've got companies as we're coming out of the pandemic, hopefully, saying, hey, listen, do we really need to be coming into an office every day? I think the state regulators saw that online content delivery was working actually pretty well for them, and it met the need. It was more cost effective, and I think it bedded in a lot more deeply than people thought it would at the beginning of 2020.
Yep, absolutely. So now we get into some of the benchmarks here. So especially as you're planning for next year, approximately what percentage of your revenue do you invest annually in creating and updating courses? So again, here you can see, I mean, a pretty large number, over 20%.
Yeah.
6 to 10% was the most common answer, but obviously, if you want to be in this business, you have to be willing and ready and able to update your content, right?
Yeah, regs change in states. What an industry demands, all kinds of stuff drives that need to be constantly updating, constantly enhancing your content. It's
and it's something you want to stay ahead of, because if the regulators come after you and say, hey, your content's out of date, or if your customer ends up, with a situation on their hands because they assumed that, the CE you were providing them was up to date, and it turns out that it wasn't, then that could put you in a really bad spot. So this
absolutely.
Now again, I think, we won't do it on this webinar, but in terms of, tools now that are available to, more rapidly and easily create and update content. I mean, that's something that we've invested a lot of our time and effort into for our customers, but I think that's really important.
Yeah, you never want your content to look clunky or old or behind the marketplace too. That's a good
segue here, because your top 3 product development challenges. I mean, number 1, creating more engaging learning experiences.
Yep.
Number 2, identifying and prioritizing new courses, and then updating course content. So it's interesting, that first one, especially those of us who, whatever, have kids, and kids have now had to, learn virtually. We were all kind of thrust into this, even if we weren't in the training business. But the whole notion of, creating engaging learning experiences, I mean, we've all suffered through the pain of unengaging learning experiences, right? And
right. I think that model of providing someone with a video that they can just, go through in 3 seconds by fast forwarding through everything, and then giving them a, spoon-fed test at the end, that's just not cutting it anymore. Just as the opportunity has expanded, there's a lot more competition for those eyeballs. There's just too many good tools out there. You really have to create those experiences that learners not just benefit from personally, but holistically across the organization. The feedback is just resounding. That's what's needed right now. It's
and I think there's an expectation as well now from learners. Yeah. It's like, what, they're not going to sit through something that's boring or whatever, not compelling. They'll find something else. And if they're in the corporate training world, believe me, they'll sort of run their complaints up the flagpole, and depending on who's complaining, action will be taken. So
yeah, you're exactly right.
Let's transition here into marketing. So what percentage of your revenue is your overall marketing budget? So this is, again, very interesting. Here, kind of, again, 3 to 5 seem to be the most common, 6 to 10. Number 2, 0 to 2, that was 21%. But what's your take on this, Brett?
I was pretty surprised by this one, to be honest with you. Given that attracting new customers was the biggest challenge. I'm a bit surprised. The average American business spends, in steady state, in a mature business, it's about 6% of total revenue. if I'm remembering that statistic correctly. And, we're kind of seeing, well, that's about half of the marketplace. So is spending that much or more. I was a bit surprised by how many folks were spending 5% and less in this space.
And you bring up really interesting, point, which is, the number one challenge is, landing new customers. But yet what we see looks like, whatever, fairly low marketing spend. I mean, and marketing has gotten very complex, digital marketing and whatnot. So, I mean, these are not always large organizations with a lot of resources. Right. So, again, just something to keep your eye on.
Even running a good email marketing campaign, is a lot of work. It's not, excuse me, costs money. You want your email to look better than anyone else's email. It's got to resonate. It's worth paying the extra money to get a good graphic designer, get a good copywriter to do that for you, so that you can really have something that pops. And I think that's one of the messages that I think I would share to anyone who wanted to listen.
Yeah, by the way, we're going to do what's called a crosstab analysis at some point that takes the fastest growing CE companies and looks at what they're doing versus the general population. So that'll be interesting to get maybe a little bit more insight here.
Yeah.
So how do you rate the effectiveness of the following lead generation activities? Email marketing. It's funny. I mean, how many years has email marketing been left for dead, Brett?
I've shared this story with you before that, I've been doing email marketing for so long that the first list I ever bought was literally from a guy on the street who handed me a shoebox full of diskettes. So yeah, I mean, email marketing has been pronounced dead quite a few times. So apparently it's still alive and well in this space. And that's not too surprising. Generally, most of the providers that we see in this space tend to be slightly more on the smaller end. And, content marketing, paid search, trade shows, hiring an outbound calling arm can seem a lot more expensive. And it's harder to see the ROI on it quickly. So it's not too surprising to see email at the top of the pile. I think I was a little surprised by search engine optimization. It is not hard to do good search engine optimization with your website right now. There are just so many resources out there to do the simple stuff, make sure it's done well. That's an area that I think folks should look at if they're thinking about 2022, potentially putting a little bit of money in there to, if they don't know how to do it, bring a 25-year-old kid in and just, take care of all that stuff. Because Google has it so simple now.
Absolutely. Especially if you're doing content marketing and webinars. I mean, if you're creating content, there are so many ways to repurpose that content now to help support your SEO efforts. So it's kind of just taking the next step.
Absolutely.
Cool. Trade shows. So this has been interesting, and you and I have been to some trade shows lately, and it ain't back to where it was pre-pandemic, that's for sure.
No.
And that certainly seems to be indicative of what the survey told us here.
Yeah, I mean, 75 people no or unsure. I have a feeling that is COVID driven.
Oh yeah.
As much as anything, and like you say, almost all the largest conferences across all industries in the U.S. were at a quarter of their attendance.
Yeah, and I think what we saw was that the vendors are chomping at the bit. I mean, the vendors want to go, but it's the customers, right? It's companies are still reluctant to send their people traveling, and potentially getting sick when they don't need to, right? Right. It's one thing if it's a must do, you got a customer that's irate and you got a big issue you got to sort out, maybe you go face to face. But if it's something like, oh, well, wouldn't it be great to attend a trade show? It's like, yeah, it would be great, but we don't want you getting sick. So let's just wait for another year.
Right.
So this is interesting here. So by what percentage your sales grow or shrink in 2020?
Yeah.
So, again, you've got a little bit of kind of a bipolar thing going on here.
Yeah. I mean, 50% of the market, the 19 plus 22 plus 9, grew. They had growth in 2020, which isn't too surprising, as there was a huge scramble for quality continuing education across the marketplace, and the people who were there and ready for it profited greatly.
Yeah.
And then shrunk by over 10%. Again, that I'm almost sure, and we'll see this when we do the crosstab analysis in the coming months. I'm sure that what we're going to see is that's going to be largely folks who have a very, very significant chunk of just pure live training, and didn't really plan for engaging online content.
Yep. Okay, here. So top 3 sales challenges: finding new customers. That's a little bit obvious.
Yeah.
Retaining and expanding existing customers, 50% almost, and pricing pressure.
Yeah. I have a feeling that that's probably going to, when we do this survey, at the end of next year, my hunch is this is probably going to stay somewhat similar. Don't you think?
I would think so. Yeah. I mean, for as long as I've been around, finding new customers has been the top challenge. I mean, let's face it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of choice out there now. Like, to your point, there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of potential, but there's also a lot of competition. I mean, if you don't have huge barriers to entry, you can spin up one of these businesses pretty quickly if you know how to do it.
Right.
And people are doing it. I mean, every day we're seeing new ones pop up.
Well, and another thing that sort of ties into some of the things we were talking about earlier. I was speaking with one of our clients just the other day, and he was saying, "Yeah, I can now pursue business in other states.
Yeah.
They're now more open to a full online training experience. But guess what? Now all my business is vulnerable too."
Yeah.
So I'm kind of doing that. I'm attacking on their doorstep, but then they're coming and attacking me on mine. So
yeah.
It's a very tremendously dynamic marketplace.
For sure. How effective are the following sales channels for your business? Again, not surprising, referral partners.
Yeah.
Number one. Again, you can't have enough referrals, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Face-to-face sales, again, typically pretty expensive channel.
Yeah.
E-commerce, that's kind of the holy grail. It's certainly emerged.
Yeah.
Still, a lot going on there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's see here. So it's kind of interesting, how much revenue from existing versus new customers. Brett, you want to maybe break this one down here for the audience? It's a little bit complicated.
Yeah. It is a bit hard. So the further you go to the right, the greater the percentage from new customers. So what folks are saying here is that last year, more than 50% of their revenue, 19% of respondents said that 50% of their revenue came from new clients. And when you look at this year, the numbers tend to stay the same for the most part. I mean, there's a little bit of variance in the 25% new, 75% existing box grows from 15% to 24%, but generally the numbers stay the same. Where things get interesting is I think that what you're looking at in the bottom box is a lot of growth, in that I expect to see a lot more new clients next year. 25% new, 75% existing explodes out to 32%. And then more than 50% new goes to 23%. So I think what you're seeing there is that, again, that I'm a step ahead of the change that's coming in the marketplace, and it's opening up a lot more opportunities for me.
Yeah. If you have a question about this, just feel free to reach out to Brett or I know we'd be more than happy to take you through it step by step. How do you price your courses? I mean, my God, this one here is gold because we hear all sorts of whatever. I mean, people in the business are curious, but lo and behold, a flat fee per learner for each course. So,
Yeah.
Sell by the drink, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And then a flat fee per learner for each certification. I mean, it's basically two different sides of the same coin.
Right.
There, I think that subscription models are interesting and intriguing. I think that, active user models, we offer them. Heck, we'll if that's how you want to sell, we'll price you in that way. But this, you purchase a box of toys and you get a box of toys model is that's the way it's going.
Yep. How important is the LMS to your business? Okay, well, this one here, extremely important 46, very important 24. So that's 70%.
Yeah.
Or whatever, viewed important. I mean, it's again, it's the platform that you're delivering the bulk of your content on. So
yeah.
Surprisingly here, Brett, right? 20% still don't use an LMS.
I mean, listen, there, 19% don't use an LMS, 23% of folks had their business drop significantly last year. I have a feeling that when we do the crosstab analysis, that's going to be highly correlated.
Right.
We'll see. But that was definitely 1 out of every 5 continuing ed businesses not using an LMS was certainly not a number I would have projected.
Definitely. So how satisfied are you with your LMS? So again, we have a number of different attributes here, and we ask people to, rate their level of satisfaction.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Brett.
I thought that the level of folks who were highly satisfied, overall was surprisingly low. I was kind of, based on the prior question of how important the LMS was and how much, how important it was to the business, I really thought that the overall satisfaction would have been higher. You would find the one that you want. You'd look at the features you need, and you'd go there. You look at the bottom, 6% were highly satisfied with the innovation by their LMS. Well, that's a wake-up call for us folks who are providing LMSs to continuing ed businesses. We have to be better at hearing the needs of our clients and being more technologically nimble. We think we are, but maybe we need to take another look at that.
Yep, for sure. Okay, let's see here. What special LMS features are most important to you?
Yeah.
So reporting and analytics by a large margin.
Yeah. Folks, it's that old, whatever isn't measured isn't managed.
Yep.
And I think that folks, it's not too surprising. Folks want to know what's going on with their course sales, what's going on with their learners, what's going on with the corporate entities that they're training. They need to speak along multiple levels to multiple audiences. So, it's not too surprising. It's a little surprising that it's that important, much more important than the other items. But, it's not too surprising, as you step back. So,
yeah, I mean, it seems like storefront e-commerce. I mean, that's essential. But then, web conferencing integration with Zoom. I mean, Zoom is sort of, it's interesting how that business has evolved, and Zoom is now the darling, right? It used to be WebEx and then GoTo, and now it's Zoom.
Yeah.
I mean, seems like by a long shot. Microsoft Teams I know is big in the corporate, kind of large corporate market, but
yeah.
But that web conferencing integration, I mean, a lot of training is delivered through web conference.
I mean, Dario, you know this about me. I think Google Meet is a perfectly viable product, and it's completely free.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've had as many bad Zoom, I've had as many technology issues with Zoom as I have with Google Meet, and yet, Zoom is the 10,000-pound gorilla all of a sudden. It's been amazing.
Let's see, let me get into support. So interesting here, so how often do you use the following channels to support customers? I mean, email and phone are still far and above the most popular.
Yeah. I'm not too surprised by that. I thought there were a few that kind of popped out to me as interesting. One was how the relative frequency of people using text messages to support clients. I mean, that's something. I can't imagine how that would work in a scalable way, but that's fantastic customer service,
right?
There.
Let's see here. What hours do you provide support? So again, just a lot of people want to know this. It says, whatever implications for how you run your business and how profitable you are. U.S. business hours, 8 a.m. EST to 5 p.m. PST.
Yeah.
And then standard EST U.S. business hours, so 8 to 5 Eastern, 5 days a week. And then you get into others, 10%, 24/7, 365. Yeah.
I mean, 24/7, 365 would that's something else.
Yeah, that almost feels like you'd be outsourcing that to some kind of a support group in India or something like that can do all that round the clock stuff at a reasonable price,
Yeah, it kind of feels that way.
Top 3 customer service challenges: managing growing customer expectations, onboarding new customers. That is absolutely critical.
Yeah.
And integrating customer data across our systems. So those are the top 3.
Yeah. I mean, managing growing customer expectations, I think we talked about that almost ad nauseum earlier. The marketplace has gotten a lot bigger in the last 12, 18 months, and customers are demanding better. If your courses are, folks are able to just zip through your videos in 2 seconds by moving the little scroll bar, and then they answer a short 3-minute multiple choice test they can do again and again. That course is not going to sell. It did 10 years ago, but not anymore. And then onboarding, you've got there's 2 times you need to get it right with a customer: the first 60 days that they're with you, and then anytime they have a problem.
Right.
And everything else is gravy, but those 2 times are just critical from a customer experience perspective.
Absolutely. So, and what about your future? What about your future in the industry most excites you? So again, we won't read through all of these, but I think it's just there's been a lot of innovation. There's been a lot of behavior change, and whatever. I mean, it's a good time to be in this business. Yeah.
No, very much so. Very much so. I think that enthusiasm comes throughout the survey, really.
And that's it. So, Brett's contact information is in the report, brett.trainor@sciolytix.com. If you'd like a copy of the report, please let us know, and we'd be more than happy to send one to you. So, Brett, hey, thanks so much for taking time out here to, walk through the survey with me and help explain some of the implications for our customers.
Thank you very much, Gary. This was a lot of fun.
It was. Okay. Take care, Brett.
Bye.